Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming to the final colloquium for the discipline of psychological sciences. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Shae Wissell. Shae and I used to work together at the Children's Hospital, and Shae is a speech pathologist and has set up this wonderful foundation for people with dyslexia, and she's going to talk to us about the foundation today and a lot of other things. So enjoy. Thanks very much, Shae.
Thanks, Janine. So thank you for having me here today to listen to my story about my journey of dyslexia and how we're establishing the Dear Dyslexic Foundation. But first of all, here we go. Was that better? I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay respects to elders both past and present.
Sorry.
You're right. Yeah, that's great. So I'm excited to talk to you today. It's actually National Dyslexic Awareness Month, which is a global campaign across the world to raise awareness of dyslexia and the impacts, but also the successes of people that have dyslexia. So I just wanted to play you a short clip developed by Richard Branson. So recently he established the Made by Dyslexia Foundation, which is about showcasing famous people that have dyslexia and their skills. So I'll just play you this quickly.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have a chat to you about dyslexia. Anyone be interested in having a dyslexic baby?
Hell, kind of question.
World's first dyslexic sperm bank. Open today. Hello, good morning. What's brought you in today?
Just a bit intrigued, actually.
Tell me, what do you know about dyslexia?
I don't know, like jumping up with writing.
Disability.
You know, siphoned off and put in the special. A lot of people think that people with dyslexia are stupid. I've heard that word used a lot.
Given the choice, would you like your child to have dyslexia? No.
I wouldn't kill it.
Right.
I accept dyslexia.
Okay.
And there's certain things I just wouldn't give them to do at all.
Only 3% of people see dyslexia as anything other than a disadvantage. But look at people around this room. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, inventor of the iPhone, he's more of an icon for genius than Albert Einstein. We've got a whole catalogue here full of people who are or were dyslexic, like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone. Dyslexics have a difference in their brains that makes them literally see the world a bit differently.
Oh, good looking ones.
Wow.
Did you know that 40% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic? Say that again.
What? That's amazing. How they the value of these individuals and their contributions to the and all of these dynamic achievers need to be given that self-esteem.
Something to be aware of its achievement. If you were thinking about how most people see dyslexia, what words do you think you would use to describe it? Disadvantage. But they're not.
So I just wanted you to think about how people perceive people with dyslexia at the moment. And I will now just share a bit of my story. So I grew up in rural Victoria, and as Janine said, I originally trained as a speech pathologist, and I then went on to do my Master's in Public Health and Health Administration. And I'm now currently doing my doctorate in dyslexia, the hidden disability in the workplace. But I was never a high achiever at school. I was terrible at sport. I didn't win any accolades, and going to a private school, that was really hard because you're either really good at sport or you were really good at school, and I wasn't either of those things. But I never had any issues big enough for anyone to pick them up or to work out that there was something wrong with my learning. So I struggled through school, but I learned to hang out with the smart people. And so with a great network at school, friends that helped me, and my mum, I was able to complete school. And so they would help edit my work. My mum would read all my assignments for me, and my friends would help me do maths calculations at the back of the class. So I was really lucky to have that network of friends. I also loved reading, so I still read a lot. I can sit and read a novel all day, and I was creative, but good at creative writing, so no one again questioned if there was anything wrong with my reading or writing skills. And I also thought everyone was like me. I didn't realise that when words moved on the page that didn't happen for other people, and I thought that everyone struggled with maths and English, so it wasn't something that I thought I should talk to my mum about, or I didn't get picked on at school, so it wasn't something that really alerted anybody at the time. And I wasn't shy of asking for help, but I did ask my teacher in Year 9 if I could stop reading aloud in class, because it made me really nervous and I couldn't read in front of people, and I hated presenting. So I've had nightmares about presenting in front of school people, and to this day it's still not my exciting thing that I look forward to doing, but what we're trying to do is really important, so that's why I'm here today. So in school we had to do cadets. I don't know if anyone knows what cadets is, but we had to do some army training, which I didn't have older brothers, so I'd never been exposed to anything like that before. And we'd have to march back and forth and go left and right, and I can't do my lefts and rights. So when we'd be marching and we'd be told to turn a certain way, I would go the opposite way. And so we were in a school of not many girls and a lot of boys, and the main school was all boys school. And so I was pulled out in front of probably 300 people and yelled at by a Year 12 boy, "Don't you know the lefts and rights?" And I just stood there frozen thinking, well, clearly I don't, but I don't know why. And so I went home feeling pretty embarrassed and ashamed, and at the time I laughed because everyone else laughed, but couldn't work out why I couldn't do that very simple thing of going left and right. So now I hate camping, I don't iron my clothes, and I hate polishing my shoes, because that's all we had to do in cadets, and that's kind of traumatised me since then. So I finished school with not great marks, but I wanted to be a chef, and I was really talented at cooking. But when I got into hospitality, it was pretty awful, particularly for women 20 odd years ago. So I left and I went travelling with my best friend. We went and lived in England and came back, and I didn't know what to do. So I started working with my mum at her childcare centre and saw kids that had autism, and thought I really want to help. I'd always liked helping people and thought this would be an avenue for me. So I applied and actually got into speech pathology, not really understanding what that meant at all. I just wanted to help kids with autism. And for the next 4 years, I really, really struggled. I failed a lot of subjects. I had to repeat. I really struggled in exams, and nobody really said anything though. So I kept just plodding along, going home feeling a bit dumb because I couldn't say words that other people could, particularly in neuroscience. And then my 4th year in my last semester, I handed in a report and my supervisor said, "I can't pass you. There's something wrong with you. I don't know what it is. I don't know how you passed Year 12. I don't know how you got this far in the course, but you can't graduate." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about? That's pretty unfair. I've got all this way. I've had all these issues. No one said anything." So I had to do a lot of work over the summer to get a pass. And so she was my referee when I had my first job, and I got a graduate position. And during that year, I was really badly bullied by my manager, and she said she'd never hired me. And I would be belittled in front of, on the wards and in front of colleagues and in front of my team because of my writing. And I really did struggle with some of those concepts around the brain, as you would know as psychologists. There's all, they're complex areas. And even though I understood things, it was hard for me to articulate on paper what that meant. So I left speech pathologist for a long time because I didn't know what to do. And I got into a management residency program, and again, I had to study. And so throughout uni, I'd had tutors, and I got another tutor. And this time she said, "I think you're dyslexic." And I didn't even know what that really meant as a speech pathologist. So I went and got assessed, and at 27, I found out that I was dyslexic and had a reading and writing disorder. And my world pretty much fell apart. I became severely depressed. I couldn't work. I had no support apart from my family, and there was nowhere for me to go to try and get some help. So it led me on a path of not feeling didn't know where I was in the world. Worked really hard to do all this study, but I didn't know what to do with myself now. So this is what happened when I was diagnosed with, from the psychologist. So I had 6 recommendations. One was increasing sight recognition and spelling of words that I encountered in the workplace. I didn't really understand what that meant. Use an electronic dictionary, which is really great if you can spell the first part of the word. But if phenomenon sounds like an F, but it's a PH, then how do you find that word? And so all dyslexics that I know, we have a very good way of changing the word because we can't spell it. So a lot of the times we might have a great word we want to use, but we have to change it to something more basic so that we can spell that word. If I have troubles understanding a passage, then reread it, which I do all the time because letters change on the page. So if I get to the end of the sentence and it hasn't made sense, then I have to go back. And it's like my brain is preempting that word, thinks that should go next. So that was something I was already doing. Undertaking a phonics course is, a useful recommendation, but if they didn't say where I could go and access a phonics course. Accessing counselling, which yes, I definitely needed because I was on a downward spiral. And choose a different career using my strengths. So I didn't know really what strengths I had, considering I just had this report handed to me, and I'd spent by then 6 years studying in health. And I didn't want to change careers. I'd spent a lot of time and a lot of money in HECS getting to where I was, but that's generally what their recommendations were. So at the time, they weren't hugely useful for me going back out into the world when there's no other support in place for people. So first, I just want to define what dyslexia is. 1 in 10 of us have it, but there's a lot of different labels and a lot of different terms for it. So different labels have included reading disorder, learning disability, learning difficulty, specific learning impairment, specific learning difficulty, and the list goes on. So we can't even get the label right for people. So if you're trying to go and find information to help yourself, how do you find it when there's all those different labels? Also, not everyone believes dyslexia exists. So there's a lot of controversy out there whether it even does, even though there's enough evidence out there now to say that it does exist. So going out into the big wide world trying to find resources and supports for myself was hard. So at the foundation, we use this definition, which said it's a neurologically based learning disability. It causes processing problems. It's lifelong, highly resistant to change, despite excellent teaching. It's usually genetic. Includes significant difficulties with reading, spelling, or maths, and has associated problems such as working memory. And genetics is really important because in my family, there's 3 generations of us, my dad, myself, and a nephew. So, and a brother. So 2 of us are diagnosed and the rest are undiagnosed. But for my dad, he left school at 13. He can't really read or write. He's an amazing carpenter. He can build you anything you want. But he can't read a book, and if you buy him a book, it has to have lots of pictures. And so he said to me, I just thought I was dumb. And so 3 generations ago, no one knew about dyslexia, not even when I was going through school. So similar to other learning disabilities, dyslexia exists on the spectrum. So there's some of us that are high functioning, and I think that's because we either had early intervention at a young age, or we've been able to go through school and have a strong education. There are other people I've met that can't fill out forms, but they're authors and they've written numerous books, but day-to-day functioning is really hard for them. And it's not uncommon for us to also have other learning difficulties such as dyslexia, so issues with maths, dyspraxia, coordination. So again, poor at sport, couldn't tie my shoelaces till I was probably 7, couldn't ride a bike without training wheels till I was probably only the same age. And then dysgraphia, so poor handwriting. So a lot of people with dyslexia don't want to write up on the board, not just because they can't spell, but the handwriting is cannot be that great. And evidence shows that this can result in numerous poor life outcomes across health, education, employment, and what's really sad is that across the world, overrepresentation in the justice system of people that have dyslexia. But what's been most distressing to me is that Australia, a country like ours, is really lagging behind the rest of the world in interventions and supports for those with dyslexia. And we're talking primary school all the way through to higher education and then in the workplace as well. There are a lot of advantages though to having dyslexia, even though I'll focus a lot today on the disadvantages. We're big picture thinkers and lateral thinkers as well. We're very good at problem solving because we've had to be. We're in a world that we don't quite fit within, so we've got to have a lot of strategies to be able to survive every day. We're visionary, creative, innovative, very resilient, extremely bright. I just added that one because I thought it was highly motivated and very successful. And like the video said, 40% of entrepreneurs have dyslexia. And we're talking about Richard Branson, Jamie Oliver. I mean, some of the ones they spoke about, it's a bit hard to know if they were dyslexic because we're talking 18th century and, you know, it's an assumption. But there are some entrepreneurs today that have been diagnosed with dyslexia. So for me, these are the different areas that I have difficulty with. So reading, as I mentioned before, words can change on the page. So that means things are slower for me on a day-to-day basis. I'm in a management role, but I have to read a lot, so it takes a little longer to do that. Writing difficulties, so spelling, grammar, maths, tenses, sequencing of sentences, sequencing of passages. So trying to write a report takes me a lot longer to do. And there's a lot of technology out there that helps. So everyone that's dyslexic is a spell check, but again, it doesn't pick up all the differences sometimes. There's also great technology such as speech to text, which I use a lot. But again, that takes a long time. So when you're in a high pressure job and you're going to churn out a lot of writing, it's really hard to dedicate 3 hours to listening because I can hear the mistakes, I can't see them. Organisational skills, at work I'm pretty good, at home not so good. I spend all my energy focusing on work. But having calendars and emails and things like that really, really help. So if I'm travelling for work, I have everything blocked out so I know where I need to be. The addresses are in there so I can use Google Maps because I get lost very easily. So challenges in orientation have always been an issue. And 20 years ago when we had to use the mailways, it was pretty horrible. And I would call my sister lost and she'd be busy at work and she would have to pull out the mailways and try and locate where I was on that mailways. And I could be anywhere in the city, anywhere in the suburbs. And so she would get extremely frustrated with me until she still does today because I still have trouble with Google Maps and she just doesn't understand why I can't get it, even though she knows I'm dyslexic. But she would get very frustrated. At least now with Google Maps, if I can't spell the word, I can ring her and that's a lot easier than trying to find me on a map in the mailways. And as I talked about before, confusions with left and rights. So on a day-to-day basis, being in a world full of words and numbers is really hard. We've got social media, everyone's on Facebook. I don't have Facebook only for the foundation because I don't want to be criticised for my spelling. And it happens, I've seen it happen on LinkedIn and Facebook. But we're using text messaging, emails, so that the world is full of words and we need to be able to read and comprehend. And a number of times I've misread a text message and ended up in an argument with my partner or gone off and done something completely different is ongoing. So that can lead to feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, anxious and depressed if it's not managed well. So that leads me on to disclosing in the workplace. So I was 27 when I was diagnosed. And after that, I really wanted to tell my employers because I had such a bad time in my graduate uni. And I didn't want to feel like I was hiding something because you always feel like you're carrying this thing because it is a hidden disability that people can't see it. So they expect you to be at a certain level, particularly if you've done so much study. So choosing to disclose, I started doing that after I found out. And it's worked sometimes really well and sometimes not so well because most people don't know what dyslexia is. And you try to explain it to them and go, oh yeah, that's fine, okay, no worries. And then when you produce a piece of work and they say, what's wrong with you? Why isn't this how it should be? So all the time you're at this level and then but your writing's down at this level. So it makes it really hard. And so these are some of the comments I've had over the years. Content is great, but you're still making a lot of spelling and grammar mistakes, even though they know that I'm dyslexic. I'll need a stiff drink when I read your report. I knew there was something wrong with you, I just couldn't work out what it was. And so this one, I'm not paying you the advertised salary until we see how much support you need. So in an interview, I was asked, do I have any weaknesses? Like we all get asked. Normally you're supposed to say, oh, I overwork or, you know, I do this or do that. But I thought, no, I do have an issue, so I'll say I need a bit of support with my writing. So when they found out that, that was their response. So they wouldn't provide me with that salary, and I had to work my 3 months to prove that I was entitled to that advertised pay. And at the time, I nearly didn't take the job because it was with a mental health organisation. And I was like, well, what type of organisation is that if that's how you're treating people that are honest about what they need? So disclosure is a huge issue for everyone, whether you've got to hide it, and so then you've got to put lots of strategies in place to support you and hope that people don't find out, or you tell people and then you're treated differently anyway. So it's a really hard one, and it's a very personal one for people. So over the last few years, not knowing really where I belong in the world, even though I've worked in health now for 10 years and in projects, and I've done a really good job at it, I've struggled to know how I could progress my career. And at a certain point, for me, I've had to take a step back and have a look, particularly at all the writing I need to do. So I started going and looking for supports and some advice. And as I mentioned before, there really isn't any in Australia. And particularly for adults, everyone's focused very much at the moment on trying to get primary school kids right. And so, that's a huge focus, and it should be, because children should be accessing early interventions. But there's a whole lot of us out there that need some help and guidance. So we set up the Dear Dyslexic Foundation, making social change happen this year. And so our role is to empower and support those 16 and over to be able to reach their full potential. Because in Australia, there's no excuse for people to have poor literacy skills when they leave school. Literacy and education is a basic human right, and in this country, everyone should be entitled to it, and everyone should leave school being able to read and write and go into the job or to further study if they wish to. So that's really why this was set up, because I thought if I've got all this support from my family and friends, what happens to the people that don't? What happens to those young boys that leave school and end up in the justice system, when really if they'd been picked up earlier, they would have had a better chance of going through to higher education or getting a job. And so that was really the driving force for why I wanted to start the foundation. And so our mission is to be the leading organisation in Australia that improves life outcomes for people with dyslexia, but their families and the broader community, because as you can see, it's not just impacting on someone's writing, it's impacting on a number of different elements of someone's life. So our goal is to reduce stigma and encourage those with dyslexia to seek help through education and awareness, to provide equitable access to evidence-based services, supports, advice and advocacy. And when I say equitable access, it's because it costs a lot to get an assessment at the moment. Some people are charging $6,000 just for a speech assessment. Generally, it's between $1,000 and $1,500 for a parent to get their child assessed. And that's just for a basic one, just a neuropsych. If you want to bring in other specialists, which really you need to get, you shouldn't just be having a neuropsych assessment, you should be having a speech assessment so you can really look at what language issues someone has. Then that costs more. Using and adapting to advances in technology, and we put that in because technology is such a huge supporting tool for people with dyslexia. And then developing strong partnerships, because we don't want to do this alone, we need to do it as a team. So we've really focused on reducing stigma and encouraging those with dyslexia to start seeking help and to educate the community about what dyslexia is. So we've got a comprehensive website, and it's divided into 3 sections. So we've got areas that support people that have dyslexia, area for teachers and lecturers, how the strategies to support their students, and then strategies for the workplace, so how do we support employers so they can support their staff to perform at the best they can. We've got a number of podcasts, so we've released 7 to date, and this is the first of its kind in Australia, just looking at dyslexia. And so we've had people like Jackie French and Catherine Devaney. We've had a teacher that's an author that lives over in the UK, and then just garden variety dyslexics like myself that have a day job, that how they manage. And so it's really about talking about their successes, but also their challenges. So we can start to get a discourse happening in Australia about what's actually going on, because 1 in 10 people is a lot of people that have been affected by this. We've got some blogs up at the moment as well. Some are from our guest speakers, some are about just my personal day-to-day experiences. We're currently developing fact sheets for the workplace and we're taking uni, and then we're everywhere on social media. So when I started the foundation, it was really my first time in social media. And for the first 3 months, I had a huge amount of anxiety about how do I respond to people. And so I had employed a friend to try and help get me through that first stage. But now we've got quite a good following. We've just set up our first community, which is to help people coming in, whether they've got a question to ask or for people to share their knowledge and skills. And then we've got Twitter and LinkedIn as well. So over the next year, we want to continue to raise awareness of dyslexia across Australia. We want to start providing multidisciplinary clinical services. So we're hoping from March we'll be able to start running clinics that provide that multidisciplinary care. And one of the important aspects is a link into a clinical psychologist to help people that may be struggling like I was. Not everyone is. Some people say that once they get a diagnosis, they're so happy, they know what's wrong, they know how to strategies to put in place, and they go on their merry way. But for others, it's not that easy. And so that's why having a link to a psychologist or a counsellor is really, really important. And on our website, we have a whole section on mental health and wellbeing and how people can look after themselves. We also want to start working with organisations, so supporting them to help them support their staff so they don't have to performance manage people that have dyslexia, and that they can ensure that people are coming to work happy and healthy. So what does that mean for you as psychologists or training psychologists? Learn all you can about dyslexia. I think particularly if you're assessing people when they have a diagnosis. If you can promote our foundation through your networks, then that's fantastic. The more people that know about what we're doing, the better. Listen to a podcast, hear some people's stories around how it's affected them and how they've managed to succeed, because everyone that's been on there has had an amazing career and has had a huge amount of success. Paying it forward, so sharing what you've learned today with someone else helps spread the word as well. And taking part in our research. So my doctorate is all about building that evidence base, because we don't have it at the moment. So there's a lot of things online that say if you do this program, you'll cure yourself of dyslexia. And that's not the case. And we've heard of parents paying thousands and thousands of dollars to teach their children to spell in clay. There's no evidence for it. And coming as a speech pathologist and public health practitioner, we need a solid evidence base. So we'll be conducting research for my project in the next year, but also our foundation is conducting research around how we can make more improvements and how we can target and support people with dyslexia, particularly in the workplace. So that's all I have. So thank you for coming to listen to me today, and hopefully you can help spread the word so we can support other people with dyslexia. That's Any questions? Any questions for Shae?
I do some of looking at students who come in with disability, and we put quite a barrier in front of students. As you mentioned, the assessment for dyslexia, and we don't take, we want some sort of a clinical or an education psychologist's assessment, rather than just the doctor or just I had it at high school, or that sort of thing. So we put a big barrier in front of students, because many students can't afford that.
No, but I think it's really important when people are assessed, because what I've found is that you can go online and there's 25 characteristics and yet you've got dyslexia. And I've been to places where people are talking and they haven't actually had a diagnosis. And I think it's really important because that helps build our evidence base. But there's places like La Trobe Uni where I got my assessment done, and so it was at a discount because it was for students, and so you got to pay it over time. So there are some options out there, but I think unless you get the assessment, you can't really get the supports. So even though it is a financial barrier, I think there's different avenues that we can support people to access that.
Sure, I have a question. Like Ed was saying, when we're teaching, one of the things that we often ask students to do is to obviously write quite a comprehensive report or a sort of an essay, 2,000-word essay. One of the things I've noticed is when I'm lecturing is that the area that we often give maybe a mark out of 30 is expression and writing and grammar. And yet that's the area I notice many students really battling and they have such great ideas, but they can't communicate it in writing. Do you feel that by going to your website that you can actually look, or we can maybe take something from your website? Because I want to really promote what you're doing, because I know I've looked and I'm finding it beneficial. Would you recommend that for your educators?
Yeah, there is a whole section on strategies that support students, and it is hard because it is a key area is that you have the right grammar and spelling, because otherwise you don't really understand what the person's trying to say. So I think also linking them in with tutors or encouraging them to have someone edit their work for them is really important. But yeah, the website does have strategies as well that can help.
We have a very good learning support team here, which often I think many of us do utilise for students, but that's great that there's also this external support that they may be finding beneficial if they're not quite ready yet to go to somebody in-house.
Yeah. And I found it really useful once I was diagnosed and went back and did my further education to be able to have extra time for assignments. Like I generally have 2 with extension, and then extra time during exam writing is a huge benefit to me. So if they can tap into services like that, it's great.
Yeah, ACOT's very, very good with that. Is there anybody online that would like to ask Shae a question? Oh, there was. Yes, please. Thank you, Tim. Tim's very skilled at Zoom.
Just had more practice.
So we have a question for you here.
So this is Vin. This is our head of school. Can you comment on? Hang on, I won't read through real quick.
Yes.
So commenting on the federal government's announced initiative to test for Year 1 students. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's mixed. I don't understand enough about it. In the UK, they're not encouraging it, but it's a huge push in Australia and all the dyslexic support groups, so spelled across the country. So there's one in each state, and they support mainly parents, but everyone has dyslexia. And so they've been pushing a lot for phonics. But the research I've read says that phonics doesn't really work for people that have dyslexia. For how we learn, it's not really the right way to go about it. But I don't know enough, and I know just by making that comment, I'll probably create a lot of controversy for those groups, but it is something that has been hugely pushed at the moment.
Thank you.
The government's brought in this language and numeracy testing course for teachers, and sort of been curious just hearing around the tracks. You know, say someone goes to Melbourne Uni, does a master's, does really well, and they can't get through what they are saying is a very basic language and numeracy test. They get 3 goes and then they're out. One of my son's friends did his 3 goes after a master's degree in teaching, and so now has no, career path. And really, at the time I thought, I bet this kid or adult now in his 30s is dyslexic. Not to be able to pass, like that, as far as I don't understand it very well, but it's just putting commas in the right place, just quite basic numeracy. But I just wondered, I just thought it'd be great for people to find out more about this. And does that mean that if you have dyslexia, you can never be a teacher? I suspect that it does now, but I just wonder about lobbying government, and I just think I don't know who's doing anything about it, or if the education faculties are doing something, but it's
interesting you say that. It's when I left school and I wasn't sure what to do, I thought I'll be a teacher like my mum. There's lots of teachers in our family. And I couldn't pass the first year because I couldn't do the basic maths and English. So I left. And that was like 20 years ago. But what they should be doing is if someone fails once or twice, they should be pulling them up and actually going through, well, is that actually an issue with this person? Academically, they're achieving in all these other areas, but this one area is a deficit. Why is it a deficit? And so they really should be looking at assessing or suggesting to someone that maybe they go and get assessed for dyslexia to see whether that's the issue for them, because it shouldn't be preventing them from becoming teachers. There's lots of dyslexic teachers, and there's actually lots of dyslexic speech pathologists I've learned over the years. So it shouldn't prevent you if you've got the right supports in place.
Yeah, I did. Shae, you touched on it before, but just what do you think is the best use of technology to support dyslexics? So now, and also what you sort of see is in development as well.
That's a good question. We're about to interview someone from the UK who's done a lot of work on assistive technology, and I think it's very personal, and it depends what areas you're struggling with. The text-to-speech, I mean, like I said before, it's been brilliant for me, and basic things like spell check. What's coming up at the moment, I mean, now text-to-speech is free because they've embedded it in Microsoft, where before you had to pay quite a bit of money to access one of those, to access a program that did that for you. But upcoming technology, I couldn't really answer at the moment, because I think it's hard to, when you're an adult, you kind of get stuck in your ways of how you put strategies in place. And so a lot of people dictate, and there's someone that's a psychologist, and so she dictates and sends all her work off to someone and they type it up. So no one knows she's dyslexic, no one needs to know. She's got great strategies in place. But there is a list on the website of different technologies that can help people.
Shae, that was a question. I think one of the words you've used a lot is strategies, and coming from an intervention and rehabilitation background, I'm thrilled to hear that this is what maybe you're able to provide as well. It's just the insight into what some of those strategies are, so that people who are, like perhaps you were, suddenly given a diagnosis and then not sure what to do with it and where to go, they can at least see that there are options to go towards a strategy for helping, let's say, with, you say speech to text. I think, just do you feel that that's really what you're hoping to do, is further that sort of information about strategies, etc.?
Yeah, it's strategies and just raising awareness that people need support. And if they get the right support, then we can actually do the job, or we can actually complete the degree and do it really well. But it's, if you don't have access to that, then that's when people fall down. Like, I have a friend, and she has been told she can't do her masters because her family don't have the time to read her assignments for her. But she desperately wants to do her masters. So through our conversations and through the website, she now feels comfortable in going to uni because she knows there's actually supports in place at uni. There's someone that can edit her work for her if she needs it. And so it's just getting the word out there and putting the information out so people understand that there's all different ways that you can get to where you want to get to.
Any other questions?
Question on that.
There was, I think there was some research to do with Macquarie University.
That was recently.
Research for academic concept and ability.
Can you read it out loud?
Yep. Reading and researchers, researchers at Macquarie University are also conducting research which found that dyslexia is associated with poor academic self-concept and anxiety. They recommend resilience training for these students. Do you agree with this, Shae?
Yes, and we based a lot of what we're doing actually on that research paper and looking at anxiety because they focused on teenagers and anxiety with their dyslexia, and I think we need to be training resilience, because that's how I'm here today, is because I've built my resilience over time. I could have easily shut down at 27 when I found out, that through a strong family network and building that resilience over time, it's hugely important. And it's not just for dyslexic kids. I think all children need to be trained in resilience, because we live in a really complex world.
Any last questions for Shae? Maybe in Sydney or online? I think that's everyone's. I'd just like to say thank you so much, Shae. I mean, I found that absolutely brilliant, and I know it's going to benefit many more people than who are able to attend in person in Sydney and online. And this is recorded, so Shae's going to be putting the recording on her website. And yeah, thanks again, Shae. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming just saying Dear Dyslexic would get us to your website.
It sure will. As long as you spell it D-E-A-R and the other way around, because there is another person that spells it A-R. I should have put that up there, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for coming and listening.
Well, yeah.
Thanks, everyone.